Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. My name is Sharon Stroy, Associate Pastor for God's Kingdom Heavenly Church, Voices in the Wilderness. I would like to welcome you to a new year and a new series of Proverbs 31 Women's Ministry. Every month, we meet to have a discussion with a woman, a female, to discuss the sermon topic that I used for this year. The Proverbs 31 Women's Ministry's mission statement is to create empowering and transformative spaces and places for all women to maximize their gifts and talents and becoming leaders who are aligned with God's purpose for their lives. And our vision statement is simply to empower women in operating in God's greatness and for all areas of our lives. So it is my honor today to welcome two amazing women, two people that are part of my tribe, Antonia Michelle McClammy and Dr. Wendy Nicholson. Our conversation today is coming from the foundational scripture in Joshua 6. Having 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark, on the 7th day, march around the city 7 times, with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse and the army will go up, everyone straight in. Now, this scripture is from Joshua and is talking about the nation of Israel going into their promised land. But before they get to the promised land, they must go in, conquer, and destroy the city of Jericho and everything in it and all the inhabitants around it. But the one thing that they could not get past was the wall. The wall of Jericho was thick, no one could get in, and it was impenetrable. But God said to the nation of Israel and Joshua to walk around the city 6 days, and then on the 7th day, walk around the city 7 times and blow the horn, and the wall fell down. Our topic is, it's a new heart, it's a new year, and it's time for a new heart. The question I want to discuss with these two amazing women: what walls are around your heart so you can get to the promised land? So I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves, but when they introduce themselves, share with us, how did you close? Wait a minute, introduce yourself and tell us something about who you are. What is your religious and or spiritual journey in relation to God and your beliefs? Wendy, I would like you to go first.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate the honor to be a part of this conversation. I am newly minted Dr. Wendy M. Nicholson, a former student at Rutgers Newark, and I am someone who I've been told I'd live the life, but I don't call it what it is. I have a strong prophetic spirit. I've had it all my life, and it's still something that I'm learning to use and learning to understand. It's helpful to me, I guess, because in the work that I do, it's beneficial when I'm clear about what's coming up, what I'm up against. I'm able to see things that happen before they happen. And although there's nothing I can do about it, it just says to me that God trusts me to see what he sees, to hear what he hears, to feel what he feels, which often takes me to the edge of humanity. But I just can't see life any other way. It's always been that way. Did I answer everything? Was there something I missed? Good. All right. I'm good.
Antonia.
Well, my name is Antonia Michelle McClammy, and I'm a marketing consultant, speaker, blogger, podcast host of Hustle Vibe Flow. I am the creative director of God's Kingdom Heavenly Church, Voices in the Wilderness. I've been with this ministry and church for almost 2 years. I'm very, very happy of the growth that this ministry has because it's speaking to the voices in the wilderness. And there are a lot of people that seem lost and they don't understand how it's important to understand how God wants to use them. But sometimes, from having past experiences with different churches, they are lost in the wilderness. So we hope and we know that this platform that we provide is opening avenues to help people get out of the wilderness and listen to the voices that's bringing them into new hope and new directions for their lives. As far as the question about, let me make sure that I answer it correctly. Um,
Your spiritual journey in relation to God.
Okay, yes. My spiritual journey has been all my life. I've always been in church. My mother always made sure we were in church, and I've always had some form of relationship with God. I wouldn't say that I was so religious at the time. I know it was a very spiritual journey for me with my mother introducing me to God. But the journey has been a long journey because you really don't understand God. You don't know who God is, but you know you believe in God, you believe in his presence. And I am so thankful for the journey of learning from different uh I wouldn't say nationalities, but different denominations has helped groom me into the person that I am and learning how to understand what God is saying to me because a lot of people will make you understand God for their version, but not allow you to understand God for yourself. When they say you always should have God and understand God for your own understanding, that is so true. And a lot of people are confused because they don't know how to feel about their journey with God. So I'm thankful for the different tools that have been put in front of me because it's been important. You know, you have your ups and downs, you know, with trying to get through life and adulting. And it has caused some problems in the journey. Sometimes you think, God, what happened? Why are you not there for me? I feel like you left me. But he really has been there for us. He doesn't like us to have pain. He doesn't like us to hurt. He just wants us to understand that he is God and no man should be before him. So through my religious journey, I love reading my Bible. I love listening to my spiritual music. I love talking to other believers because it's so beautiful to me to hear their journeys and how God has been instrumental in their lives. So back to the spiritual part, I wouldn't have it any other way because it's a journey every day. And you just have to plug in and you have to know God is God and he is for us.
Thank you. So, Wendy, it is 2024, brand new year. God has allowed you to see a new year. I would like to know, what did you do to close out 2023 and begin 2024? And what I mean is, how you entered into 2023, is it different than how you entered into 2024?
Yes and no. As a child, I always detested going to church for watch night service because I felt like people packed out the church because that's what you're supposed to do. Where the year finds you, where the year ends or begins, that's where you're going to be the rest of the year, which I truly did not believe was authentic. And so I did not like going to church for watch night service. However, in the church that I grew up in, um, at 5 minutes to midnight, they turned out the lights and everybody was on their knees. And we brought the year in on our knees in prayer. And so even though I was home 2023, 22 into 23, and again now 23 into 24, that part of watch night for me is still a viable practice that I bring the year in prayer. So was it the same? Yes. However, my mindset, I think, was a little bit different. And that's why I say no. The last several years have been extremely challenging, particularly as I was going through my PhD journey and all the other things that I was experiencing. And I think that 22 to 23, I was feeling a little bit more desperate. Like everything's just going wrong. I'm tired of this. God, what are you doing? I don't like it. How do you help me feel better? Most recently, I think I see things a little bit clearer. A lot of what was seemingly negative actually hasn't been. Didn't feel good necessarily going through it, but the actions that I took or others took, the thoughts that I had, the things that I experienced, I can look back and see how they were all things that were being put in place for my good, particularly after the degree, because Sharon, as you know, because you have spoken this into my life, that my real work begins now that I finished the degree. And so my mindset was a little bit different. And so it's not, God, what are you doing? It's, okay, God, what's next? Like, what do you have next for me? Where am I going? How am I going? And then being patient and waiting for him to roll that out for me.
So Wendy, I want to build on that. And so there's something that I heard in there. There was a wall of desperation.
Surely.
What did that wall feel like? What were the things that you needed to do to overcome it, go around it, knock it down? How did you get through that wall? We're talking about the walls that are around our heart that have a tendency to keep things in when we're supposed to be getting out. Because remember, they were trying to get to their promised land. Right. And Jericho was a city of sin, abject sin. So we need to think about those things that are not of God so we can get to our promised land, which, as we discussed, is on the other side of your degree.
Correct.
So let's talk about for a minute that wall of desperation.
So, and that was just one of several walls, right? The desperation. I wanted to be finished. I was tired of going through some of the things I was going through, dealing with some of the people I was dealing with, and I just wanted it to end, right? It was really more of throwing a tantrum, really, and not paying attention to not only what God was saying to me at that point, or even what he wasn't saying, but what had that meant for the things that came previously, right? Because there were things that I have gotten through, and even though they seemed horrible, God has always gotten me through them. And so, it was for me.
Did she freeze? Antonia, did she freeze?
Yes, she's frozen.
She's frozen. Send her a message. So, Antonia, as we are talking about, okay, there she go.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So did you miss most of that?
Yeah, you froze. It's all right.
Okay. I don't know what you heard, but so I think
God had gotten you through those things.
So it was a matter of me making a decision to stop holding on to things, right? And I think a lot of us do that. We pray and we ask God to help, to do something, to change, and then we keep holding on to it. And so it was for me learning how to let go. And probably most recently, that wall was one of, I guess I've the wall of sensitivity, right? Meaning people have said things to me throughout my life, who've done things throughout my life that I've internalized and that I've been dealing with for most of my life. But most recently, because of the wisdom that someone spoke into my life, I made a list of all of those people and all of those things. And I spoke to every single one of those people for me. Some of them are deceased, but it was for me speaking out loud. You did this. I felt this. I didn't like it. I'm done with it. Thank you for what you did. I forgive you. Done. Right? Scratched out the entire list and then burnt the piece of paper because I'm done.
Yeah.
Right? I can't keep holding on to that stuff because it is going to hold me back. And in some ways, it probably has. And so it was, okay, God, I've got to get rid of this. And so this is what I'm going to do. And I'm giving it to you. And that's it. Yeah. Does it feel different? Absolutely, it does. Right? Yeah. Because now I can think of those people and not have that visceral anger that I've always had. Right? And so whatever I was holding on to was not allowing me the heart space and the head space to do what I'm supposed to do. And so I had to let go of that so that I could actually move forward.
There are so many walls that you just spoke about. The wall of anger, the wall of not letting go. You just going to leave. I'm just going to hold on to it. The wall of not letting go. The wall of anger. The wall of sensitivity. You're offended. Like you're offended and you're still holding on to it.
Right.
But I'm glad you gave a practical tool. Let me just restate it. Where you wrote all of the names down, the things that were said, whether they were dead or alive, and spoke it out into the atmosphere. Everything that God said for you to do, to forgive, to let go, and then you burnt the piece of paper.
Yeah.
Whether you talk to them or not, that is a practical tool about letting go of things that people have said to you. So I just wanted to lift that up for those who are listening that is dealing with the wall of not letting go, holding on to people in pain. Thank you for that. Antonia, 2023 and 2024, how did it begin? How did it end? Is there anything different from last year?
Wow, that's a loaded question, and I'll try to have a short story. My year started from having surgery, and I had so many other changes from moving and from state to state and other things in my life. And I didn't understand. I was very angry. I tried to have some sanity, but it was hard to have sanity when you have no control. You're thinking you're making the best decisions, and sometimes they're not really the best decisions, and you're learning lessons along the way. And you had losses from people that been in your life for a while, and they're no longer there. And so you have to accept the change that people that you thought were there for you in some ways, that you have to let them go in other ways. And it's hurtful. So throughout my year, I had losses. I had so many unexpected changes. I had guilt. And I had to deal with the guilt and the anger. I felt like I was always in a battle zone, fighting, physically fighting, mentally fighting. And it was very hard because you felt alone, even though God is right by your side when he said no weapon formed against his kingdom shall prosper. But it was so many things prospering, but you had to keep remembering that he's there. So as far as ending the year, I decided to be still because he's taking me through all this for a reason. And I might not understand, but I have to understand. So I was quiet. I said, God, I don't know what you're trying to do. I know I have to deal with it, and I'm going to be quiet. So going into the year of 2024, I went into with open heart, gratitude, and I know God is being God. What I did differently, I normally listen to my gospel or some type of church, or I might listen to the New Year's events, that they have on TV. And I didn't do any of that. I just was quiet and thankful for where I am, even though I didn't understand. So it helped me say, okay, this year we're gonna do different things, because last year just was, I was on the magic carpet, just going wherever it wanted me to go. So I had to accept that I have no control, and this gonna be another magic carpet year, and I'm gonna do it with a smile and just accept what it is, and know God ain't gonna let me be without. He gonna make sure I got food. He gonna make sure I got a roof. He gonna make sure I have my sanity. He gonna make sure that I have my health when all of that could be challenged. And he also said, open your mouth more. What you don't like, say you don't like it, and be stern. Because I've always been so meek and just let people run all over me in a lot of ways. And I've learned strength. And it's okay to say no. And it's okay. You're not gonna do that to me no more. And you want to argue with yourself, because it's not worth it to me. And that's it. Because God doesn't remind us what we did 100 years ago, and over and over and over, and beat us up and brown nose us. He forgives us. And he said, I know you made mistakes, baby. And he gives us love, unconditional love. So why I'm going to let man keep beating me up if God don't beat me up? So that's my new journey going into 2024. Nobody's beating me up. And there's so much fighting I'm going to do if it doesn't make sense.
So there were, you like Wendy, there are a number of walls that were going on there. That anger seems to be getting us all.
Yes.
Decision making. You're on the wall. You need to make a decision. Yes. Are you going to make the decision, or are you going to trust God? Like losses, change, like change is hard.
Yes.
But if you trust God, it's not that hard. But what I want to talk to you about is, because there are people that want to, back to this decision making, they're putting a prayer before God and waiting on the decision. How do you wait on the wall of uncertainty? You know God has made a promise, but you don't. And Wendy, I see you shaking your head, so you may want to jump in here too. You know God has made a promise. You heard it. You prayed about it. You're waiting for it, but you are now on the wall of uncertainty. You're waiting. You don't know whether I go left, go right. How do you navigate that wall?
Well, I could go first.
Go ahead, Tonya.
I think for me, what I have done is that every morning I go out and I just say, God, thank you. I say thank you. So whatever wall is there, I'm going to wait until you tell me I can go through that wall. Because one thing about God's walls, you can go through. I don't care how many blocks, bricks, or what's standing there, stones, however that wall is made. He's going to make a passage where you can go right through that wall. So when I get up, I say, God, just thank you for the simple things. And as I'm being thankful, it gives me the patience to wait when he say, okay, I don't made a way, baby. You can get through that wall. And so for me, I wait patiently. I'm thankful. I show gratitude. And then I know he will give me permission and allow me to have that protection when I have to go on the other side of that wall. And so that's how it's been for me.
Making sure you say thank you every day. Wendy, how do you navigate the wall of uncertainty?
Oh, that has probably got to be one of the hardest things that I've dealt with throughout my life. It's interesting listening to Antonia saying, she always was meek and she needs to or wants to get stronger and be more assertive. That's the one thing that's always gotten me in trouble. I've never known my place. I'm going to say what I need to say. I'm going to do what I need to do and move on. And as a female, it doesn't always come across, to people the way they think it should. So that's always gotten me in trouble. And part of that also is just my own disposition. I want things to be right. I want them to be in order. I need to know. And God is like, you need to know what? I'm God, right? And so I can fuss, scream, shout, jump up and down, spin on my head, doesn't matter. If he's not going to answer, he's not going to answer. If he's not going to move, he's not going to move. If he's going to move, he's going to move when he wants, how he wants. It doesn't matter what I think about it. And so for me, it is this constant reminder to myself, stand down. You trust God. God has been with you your entire life. You have been in situations where you honestly did not know until 11:59:59 what was going to happen. And then God went, okay, now, and things worked out. And so for me, it is just this sense of giving myself permission to mature.
Yeah.
And if I'm trusting you, God, then I'm trusting you, God, even when I don't see it. And that means me not coming back to you and keep asking you the same thing over and over. Okay, I've asked for it. You know how I feel. I'm not going to keep pestering you. So it is a daily, not a struggle, but it's a daily behavior that I have to just tell myself, listen, back off, right? Because I think, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I think church people, we get these little pithy sayings and we think that they are the greatest thing in the world, right? I'm too blessed to be stressed. Wrong. Just because you are blessed does not mean that you're not going to have stress in your life. It's just not going to happen, right? But we have to understand that because God never said that we weren't going to have problems, right? So for me, it is, yes, you want to be in control, but they're just things that you're not going to be able to control. God has it, see it for what it is, and move forward. All that other stuff is just me creating more stress for myself.
For yourself. For yourself. Because his word said we will be persecuted in his name. And we're claiming him, that comes with the territory. That comes with the territory. And wait a minute. And so let's go back to the scripture. He gave instructions. Walk around this city 6 days. On the 7th day, walk around 7 times with the ark out front. The ark represented the presence of God. The priest was behind the ark and the people were behind the priest. So what it meant was, in order, and wait a minute, and follow the instructions, obedience. As long as we are behind the presence of God, the wall fell down. Blew the trumpet, the invincible, impenetrable wall fell down. Let's think about all of the walls that we put up. It may not even be somebody else that we put up.
True.
Which, go ahead. No, go.
And every wall is not going to fall in that great fashion, right? We will look for those things. It may not even be that. It may be, like I just said, burning that piece of paper, and now I have a sense of calm and peace around these people. That wall fell. There was no sound. There was no fireworks. It was just gone, right? So it will look differently each time.
Yeah, absolutely. So wait a minute. So while we're here, I'm going to skip around on the question. The sermon on Saturday lifted the concept about the walls around our heart. And that seems to be where we're going. What walls do women place around their hearts and why? Anybody can go.
Oh my.
That's an interesting one.
Oh my.
Now, I specifically said women. So that can be all ages, from when we were a teenager till we get to a certain age. What walls do women place around their hearts and why?
There are many. And I think oftentimes many are given to us. And then
elaborate.
We buy into it. So again, things that people might say to you as a child growing up, things that you internalize, and then you make it your own, right? So if I'll be transparent, my purposes in life are to write and speak. Those are my greatest skills, my greatest passions. I know that, right? As a child, I was very curious about everything. And I wanted to know. So I asked questions. I talked about things, whatever. And I was often told from my own house to other, stop talking. Why are you asking so many questions? You just want to buck the system. You tell me I can't wear white after Labor Day. Why? But you can't tell me why. And you can't tell me white what? Sneakers, hat, you can't tell me. But you're angry at me because I'm asking the question and you're making it my issue, right? Stop asking questions, stop talking. Now, that could have broken my spirit and I would not be doing the things that I'm doing today, right? So things like that, the way that people compare you to others, whether it's siblings or classmates or whatever, the way people compare you, the way they tell you, you don't fit in because everybody dresses like this, but you don't. And why are you doing that? And so it's just all this noise that you hear all the time. And so there are some walls that are given to you, but you then become the builder, right? Because you are now trying to protect yourself from these things on the outside, but by doing that, you also isolate yourself on the inside. So there are walls of sensitivity that we get. There are walls of anger. There are walls of what I'm saying, identity, and just the way I look or the way I think, or right. So there are lots of things that we wind up getting, right? Some lessons are caught, some lessons are taught, type thing, right? And so it's anger. It's this when we become parents, then it's that wall of, am I doing the right thing? And then when your child gets old enough to think that they can mouth off on you, then you wonder, what have I done wrong to make them this way? So there's so many different things that women put on themselves and put around themselves, even in the church, spirituality, because the patriarchy in the church makes it difficult for women, I think, sometimes to blossom and to grow. So that's a loaded question. We could be here all day with just that one question right there, because it's so much.
And the thing about it is, the question was given for people to think about the walls that they've endured. For example, you said something, the wall of comparison between siblings actually creates the wall of insecurity. Because
absolutely, it can, surely.
Right. And so that's what my takeaway is, that the wall of comparison between siblings in your childhood has a tendency to create a wall of insecurity. Well, you're the favorite, because I've actually heard that one.
But I also think it creates a wall of resentment.
There you go.
So you resent the sibling when it's not their fault, or you resent the person that's making the comparison.
Yep.
And some people might internalize it and resent themselves. Why am I not good enough? And there, that goes back to the wall of insecurity. So then these walls, they're not separate walls. They sometimes now become combined.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Combined, thicker, taller.
Yes.
Antonia, what walls do women place around their hearts, and why?
I think one of them is trust issues. There's a lot of women, they don't have friends, or they have too many friends and they don't trust none of them, or they've had so many women in their life that have hurt them. They think every other woman that comes into their life is going to hurt them, because it could be mother issues, it could be sister issues, it could be aunties, and the list goes on and on. So it caused people to put a hardness around their heart, because you can have someone sincerely there and really love them, but they don't know how to receive it because they've been damaged by other people or other women in their life, if it's mother, grandmother, auntie, and so forth. So it's amazing how they have this wall around their heart because they don't want to receive love, or if you had a disagreement or something happened, oh, I knew that was going to happen. It's like it's automatic negativity instead of looking at how can we fix this, because it was just a matter of a misunderstanding, or it wasn't what you really interpreted it to be, but you already got your dukes up because you're looking for heartache because that's how it's been all your life. So you don't even realize when there's someone good coming to you, because you're looking for a problem, because you've always had negativity. So you figure, okay, this is going to be a negative problem as well. So it's easy to say goodbye. It's easy to let go. Sometimes we have to fight for what we love, fight for it. You don't just give up so easy because it's hard, but that's one of the walls. I think competition,
Mm.
people with status, and they want to be famous and rich, and they don't realize rich is not about money. Rich is about love and life and about God, that richness in your life. But people, they're about status. So if you one of those people that don't care about it, they want to make you feel uncomfortable. That's why I don't like being in a room with a lot of women that's bougie like that. And I have a lot of great friends, but them bougie kind, I'll be like, you know what, get away from me with your Mercedes and all your diamonds and all that. It's not like I'm jealous because I've had those things, but I don't care. I care about your heart. I care about how you treat me. I care about how you treat that person behind the register that's a cashier or that janitor, because that really tells me your character, or that homeless person that really is homeless and how you treat them, or how you're going to be nasty, So you got that problem. And then other problems is jealousy. Jealousy is such a big thing. When we were talking about sisters, or mothers being jealous, or friends, they're in competition with you. Why are you in competition with me? I'm like, I want to be at your footsteps and see what I can learn. You my girl, you my friend, you my homie. Let's learn from each other. We don't have to be in competition, but that's a big problem, because sometimes when people are doing better than you, instead of you evaluating how I can do just as good or learn, they want to be jealous. And then that's when the evilness sets in, because they're trying to look at how they can sabotage you and hurt you. And so that's terrible. We shouldn't do that, but that's what people do. And the last thing I would like to add is that because you have a whole lot of people around you, that don't mean that your heart is in a good place. That's just noise taking up space. Sometimes you have to spend some time around to see what's really in your heart. But you can't do that if you always got chaos and noise all the time and drama and all that stuff. How are you really seeing what your heart is? Because sometimes people want to say, well, I got a good heart. I'll give you money. I'll do anything for you. But really, is your heart really that good? Just because you're giving somebody something, that doesn't mean that all the time. So sometimes take some quiet time.
So, it's interesting. What I've heard is, how people say, God knows my heart. And then my husband would say, well, if somebody would say that to him, his follow-up response was, well, how sad is that? Because what is really in your heart? And so what it sounds like, because of these external forces, external individuals, women build up, really what it means is this wall of distrust. Because the wall of distrust and insecurity has a tendency to breed the competition and the jealousy. And what people forget is that as women, not just women, as individuals, we are fearfully and wonderfully made by God. And, back to cliches, what God has for me is for me. And what God has for you is for you. So I'm always the one on the front line when things start going well, because I get to say, I got a front row seat and I get to be a witness to your greatness. Like, I'm just happy to when women succeed. But I'm really happy when my Black women, my sisters of the diaspora, because we have a burden that some women don't, and that's called slavery, chattel slavery to be exact. We come with that burden, and it's through the generations and the dysfunctions that have come through the family. How can we as women recognize we all have gifts that if we bring them together and support one another, those walls that we build up in ourselves can actually be torn down bit by bit. What do you think?
Well, I think people in general, women in particular, you're right, because we have a lot more put on us, Black women specifically. We need to pay more attention to ourselves. Pay more attention to who you are, what you're doing, and not what the person next to you is doing. Right now, yes, we can support each other. I can be there for you. I can help you up. Right. But at the same time, I still have to do for me. And I can do for me and for you without comparing us, because I'm a writer, I'm a speaker. That's what I've done my entire life. If you are a culinary specialist, I might be like, "Wow, I wish I could cook like that, but I can't." And that's fine, right? You do it, I'm going to enjoy it, right? I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to tell you, okay, this one didn't work, that one did, whatever. But I'm not going to try to tear you down because I don't have the cooking skills that you do. It's not what I'm supposed to do. And while I am busy focusing on what you are doing, which is what I'm not supposed to be doing, I'm not focusing on and or doing what I should be, which means I am now not only doing a disservice to God, I am doing a disservice to the other people whose lives are dependent on me doing what I'm supposed to do and being where I'm supposed to be at a specific time. So if I mess up for me, I mess up for a whole lot of people, right? So it's more focus on me and my relationship with God. What is God telling me? What does God have for me, right? And that may include helping others. If my purpose in life is to be the hospitality person, well, then that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be the one greeting you at the door. I'm supposed to be the one bringing you food when something's happening in your family. And I need to be able to do that with a cheerful and humble spirit, right? And not be upset that, well, why am I bringing food to their house? My house ain't that big. That's not your issue. It's not your issue, right? Because maybe you can't handle a house that big. So don't want what's not yours, right? And that's the other thing. Folks want, the titles and the accolades, but they don't want the work that goes with it, right? There's a lot of responsibility to have bigger and better. And when you are only seeing the external, you miss me, the person, and you have no idea how I might be hurting or struggling. And so I think that we need to focus more on ourselves. And here's part of the issue with that. We are socialized to think that when we focus on ourselves, that we're being selfish, right? When in actuality, done with the right spirit, it's more about self-care. It's about doing what I need to do, when I need to do, for whom I need to do, not worrying about everybody else. Because, even in scripture, if the toe says it doesn't want to be a toe, I mean, my toe can't be my ear, right? Do what I need to do. Focus on what I need to focus on. Be the best at what God called me to be and to do.
Yeah. And Tony, do you want to add anything before I go to the next question?
Well, I love how Dr. Wendy mentioned about self-care. I mean, self-care is so important. We hear it all the time, but what are the steps for self-care? How are you taking care of yourself? In my podcast, we had talked about the simple thing is savoring a cup of coffee. I'm not saying just gulp it down because you're not savoring it, but sit on your porch, get with your thoughts and savor, taste the coffee or whatever flavor you decided to have. because that's self-care and healing for your soul. You know, another thing that you mentioned about the jealousy that people have, and about staying in your lane. You know, if you're supposed to be the greeter, be the happiest greeter. And I don't care if you got the doctorate. People are so caught up, and no disrespect to you, Dr. Wendy, because I commend anybody with the masters and doctorate, but don't be putting like you up there with God. If I need you to be at that door, you be at that door with a smile, because you don't know who you're going to bless from your degree and what word you might be bringing to that person. People are so caught up on status. That's why they bougie and snobbish. If you would just be who God is using you as a vessel, man, this world would be in such a better place, because he used each and one of us to deliver a message if we will allow it. And that's all I have to say about that.
Which actually is a great segue into my next question. Because the question is talking about the woman Rahab. The woman Rahab in Joshua 6 was a prostitute on the wall of Jericho. She lived in the city, and she was the local prostitute. And when they was telling you that the nation of Israel was, that God said that they were sending the nation of Israel to destroy this city, Rahab was probably the only person that believed and did something about it. Now, here is a woman who in modern day, today, would probably be ostracized, talked about, nobody want to deal with, because she's the prostitute. But her role in hiding the spies and then diverting the king of Jericho into another direction saved her life, her family's life, and anybody that was in the house when the nation of Israel came back. How significant do you think her role was in this story? And how significant can the local prostitute be today?
You just hit hard, you just hit hard. I think her role was extremely significant, but the label was even more significant, right? Because there are women in the Bible that don't have a title, they don't have a name, but the fact that there was a pointed intentionality on describing her as the prostitute, right? We make distinctions about people and what they do or what they don't do. We don't know her situation. We don't know how it happened, why it happened. We don't know, right? The fact is, this is how she was described. But the significance is that God can and or does use whomever he wants. The title didn't matter. Prostitute, PhD, didn't matter, right? God chose to use her. You think, oh, she's a prostitute. She's this kind of person. She's that kind of person. You have no idea what's happening inside. You don't know what her relationship was like. If there was a spiritual or religion, we don't know, right? So God uses whomever he wants. And again, this person who probably was ostracized then too, certainly would be today. As you said, Sharon, she believed what was going on, and she was obedient to a calling that we don't know if she knew what the calling was. She was obedient in hiding these people because she recognized there was something about them, and she did what she did, and not only saved herself, but saved the entire household. So that goes back to me saying, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, who else am I hurting by trying to be someone and something that I'm not. Right. And so for anybody who's feeling insecure, who's behind that wall of insecurity, imposter syndrome, competition, whatever, God can do what he wants with whomever he wants, including, I'm not saying this is her, but including the devil himself. God can do whatever he wants to do, right? And it's for us to be obedient. Not saying that it's easy, because we think we know everything, but I'm just saying, but it makes sense because he's got a whole city. And if the whole city was deemed as a city of sin, but he chose that one person. He chose that one person in that city of sin to do what needed to be done for his people. And in return, he saved the entire household. I don't know much more we can do about that one.
Antonia, you want to add on to that?
You know, the part about the prostitute, because, you know, when you think of prostitution or prostitute, is filthy, poor, nasty. She just, just doing whatever. She don't care about herself. And you don't know what led her to that situation. But what I like about what Dr. Wendy said, she was being used for a purpose.
That's right.
And the purpose might not have been what I had said previous about her being dirty and nasty. She had to do a job to save her family and save her legacy. And sometimes people are so quick to judge whatever a person is doing, or if they have gone through so many things and fell down so many times, they're so quick to judge and say, I remember where you always been there. You ain't never going to change. They put a stigma on you. But sometimes we have to fall, get back up, and finally get to crawling, get to walking, then get to running. Who are you to judge anything about anyone? And that's what we have to stop doing, is judging. You're not the judge maker. God is the judge maker. And stop judging people so much because of they're not what you want them to be or you think they should be. If you really look in your backyard, you should be at better places. So stop judging others.
And so here's the thing. It seems as if God wasn't necessarily concerned about her sin, but her heart. So there must have been something in her heart to where God knew that she would be obedient and believed. So even before the spies got there, they had already received the warning. And she believed what God said, what he said that this nation was going to do. So she believed the God of Israel before they got there. And when they got there, she hid them, redirected the people into a different direction, put the red cord down, followed all of the instructions for salvation. For salvation. And she was then allowed to get to the promised land. So to your point, Sister Antonia, God wasn't judging her on her sin. He was judging her on her heart.
Yes. And that's the whole point. Because if you go by the title, you wouldn't even get a chance to get to her heart. Because you're thinking she got a cold heart. She don't care. But she has a heart of gold, warm. And she wants to do whatever she can with that beautiful heart of hers.
And so as we come down to our closing, I have one last question, which I always ask. In today's society, what advice will you give to the next generation of young women about allowing walls to form or not form around their heart? We got a couple of minutes. What advice would you give to the next generation of young women about forming walls or not forming walls around their heart?
Well, I can start with that one. The advice that I give for the next generation that I am seeing is that don't be afraid to pray. Don't be afraid to talk about God. Because I think when you've gone through so many things in your young years, you need that foundation to keep you strong. And you want to be a leader in your own right and not a follower. You know, I think sometimes when you want popularity, you have the problem of influencers. Social media is the big thing, and you want to be larger than life. You get lost because you're trying to be what the world wants you to be, but you're not being really what God has destined you to be. So I think if you have that foundation of practicing a spirituality, have a religious um, thing that you do every day for yourself to keep you grounded. I think that's so important because it won't matter what the world expects of you because you know what is expected from you from God. And it helps you not be lost because I would say in my generation, maybe, or maybe the generation under, a lot of people have been lost. A lot of mental illness have affected a lot of people because they're trying to be what everybody wants them to be. But you have to walk your own path, your own beat your own drum. And if you have that foundation, I think it's so important um of God and presence in your life. I'm not telling you to walk around and I'm blessed and highly favored and all them things. I really despise when I hear that because it scares me when I hear that because that's just a saying. But really have that light in your life. People are gonna see it. They're gonna see the light that you have, but you gotta want to receive that light. You can't say I want to be in the darkness. If you say that, you're keeping yourself unhappy. You're keeping yourself in the darkness. But I think if you find that light and tap into the light that gives you the strength to conquer the things that you have to conquer in this world, because you're being used to be change makers. You're being used to break on ceilings. So you have to have that strength you can plug into. And if you do that, it would help protect your heart. If your heart is very sensitive, it'll help protect your heart when you need to be hard in the right way.
Mhm.
If you have to be that Rosa Parks or any other historic hero that went through so much more than you have to go through today, it would make you stronger. And you don't have to worry about having a cold heart because that heart is always warm. It's always feeling good. It's always protected.
Wendy, what advice would you give?
Oh my gosh, it's kind of hard to figure out which thing to say because there's a lot, and they're connected, but it's difficult to give one or two specific things because it's so many other issues. However, I think that self-reflection and self-evaluation is important because we're given a lot of things that aren't ours to have. Right? People tell you this, that, the other, but you have to know who God made you to be. And sometimes that means disconnecting from others, whether for a period of time so that you can just get quiet, or it may mean, actually disconnecting from people. And so being able to really know and understand your purpose, what God has put you here for, and allowing Him to guide that path. The other thing is self-care. We talked about this again, because we live amongst people, right? We get a lot of things, we hear a lot of things, we see a lot of things, but we have to be able to protect ourselves, protect what God has given us, right? It's okay to be different, right? Different is not bad. Rahab was different.
Yep.
It's okay to be different. Others have problems with difference. That's their problem,
Yes.
right? Sometimes you need to just get away from all the noise, get silent. And people are afraid of silence, right? There are some people, I mean, I know some people like, if we just sat here right now for 3 seconds and didn't say anything, I know somebody would just have to talk because they can't have silence, right? But sometimes you do, because in that other noise, you can't always hear God's voice.
Exactly.
Right? God is not going to be this booming voice. It's not that. Sometimes you just have to step back and be. It's okay. You don't have to be a part of everything. Right? It is really knowing and understanding who you are and what you are supposed to be, and being authentic about it and being unapologetic about it. Right? And sometimes that means, folk aren't going to like you. Okay. Sometimes you don't want those folks to like you. But, it's difficult. I mean,
It
there's a
is.
whole lot of stuff to say, but
I appreciate the fact of self-reflection. I think that is extremely important for all women of all ages to take a time. And that's what a new year is about. It's not about resolutions and making promises that you may not even keep halfway through the year. It's about taking the time to self-reflect. Where was I at in January 1st, 2023? Where am I January 1st, 2024? And I think that really resonated with me about self-reflection, self-evaluation. And if God allowed you another year, then that's a more time for, all right, so where was I? And where do I need to go? And how do I protect my heart, guard your heart? But how do I dismantle and tear down the walls of my heart so I can, I can let God in, being still so I can hear his voice. When I hear his voice, being obedient. That's what a new year should be about. It should always be about having a heart for God. And so I want to personally thank Antonia Michelle McClammy, Dr. Wendy Nicholson for this really insightful conversation about a new year and a new heart, and breaking down those walls. Please join us every month, the last Sunday in the month. We will have a different topic, a different discussion, 4 to 5 p.m., God's Kingdom Heavenly Church, Voices in the Wilderness, on Facebook, X, YouTube, and Instagram. God bless you, God keep you, and have an amazing rest of your day.